Hi there. In my last video, I talked about the higher consciousness paradigm shift and the three keys we're all being initiated into. This video is actually a transmission about the second key, which is the alignment key. If you haven't watched my initial video and the empowerment key, I highly encourage you to watch those two videos first, because this video will make so much more sense if you have the previous knowledge of those two videos. But before I get into alignment, let me introduce myself to you. I'm Dr. Christine. I have a PhD in transpersonal and humanistic psychology, and I specialize in consciousness, spirituality, and integrative health. I'm also an intuitive, both naturally as well as trained, and I'm a quantum energy healer and pre-birth experiencer, which means I had an experience in which I remembered my birth and everything that came before this lifetime. I've talked about my pre-birth experience in great length in a few other videos and interviews. So if you're interested in that, I'm linking all of those videos in the show notes. Also, if you want to learn more about me or book a one-on-one session with me, you can go to my website. And lastly, if this message feels important to you, trust that feeling and please share this video. Sharing it is one small way we can help bring more awareness and more consciousness into the world. All right, let's get into alignment. And what does that mean? Alignment means living in truth with a capital T and embodying it. Alignment is really the bridge between the 3D and the 5D, and I talked about this in previous videos. A lot of us, since this past March of 2026, are starting to understand whether or not we are aligned with our inner truths, our soul truths, and how we're actually living those soul truths and embodying those soul truths in the world. Why does this become important when we talk about higher consciousness shift? It becomes important because this shift is a quiet shift. It happens within all of us first and foremost. So the more people step into a five-dimensional higher consciousness way of being fully aligned with their soul truths and embodying that, living that in the world on an everyday basis, the more we can actually manifest the 5D in the real world out there. We cannot manifest a five-dimensional sort of heaven on earth if we ourselves on a personal level haven't done our work and are not in alignment with that. So that's why this is also very personal and very quiet revolution, because it requires all of us to do our own inner work and our healing work. It's us saving ourselves and nobody else. Alignment is not something you think about. It's something that you live. It is something that is embodied. Alignment really equals truth with a capital T. There are three layers of truth. There's the conditioned truth, there's the ego truth, and then there's the soul truth. Let's start with the conditioned truth. Conditioned truth, or what I would call domesticated truth, is the truth that we were all taught by our family systems, our parents or caretakers that we were born into from the moment that we stepped into this lifetime. So from the time that you were born, everything that you were taught about how the world works, how your emotional system and life works, what to think about yourself and others, your cultural background, everything that is conditioned, domesticated truth is that truth. It's what you were taught from an early age on and what you decided to believe from that moment on. That is conditioned truth. Ego truth is the second layer, and ego truth is what feels safe. So out of the conditioned truth, the ego truth emerges. It's what our caretakers or our parents teach us about ourselves. Let's say if you had a very critical mother who taught you that nothing that you were doing was ever good enough, that was very perfectionistic, and that taught you that you needed to do better, that you needed to be more perfect, then out of that truth would probably come an ego truth of I am not good enough. I am not doing the right things. If it's not perfect, then I cannot step out and actually show myself. That is ego truth emerging out of conditioned truth. And ego truth is also always a truth that makes us feel safe. So you could see how an ego truth that would come out of a perfectionistic parent that teaches us that we're not good enough could also become very unhelpful. It could create something that would block us for a while. Ego truth can be very helpful in the beginning of our lives, especially when we're little and we still require the soothing and the caretaking of our parents and cannot self-soothe or self-regulate our nervous system. That's when ego truths start. It's a way of making us feel safe. It's a way of helping us survive through that time in our lives where we cannot provide that for ourselves yet. But when we step into adulthood and we haven't resolved that ego truth, and it's still active and trying to keep us safe, it might become unhelpful and it might actually become a block in our life. So going back to that example, if you constantly think, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, then you might actually not step into, let's say, a healer or stepping into something more meaningful in your life because your old ego truth is still telling the story of you're not good enough to actually do that. So we have a conditioned truth, that is the early truth. And out of that conditioned truth will always come some sort of ego truth that will temporarily be keeping us safe and will be helpful, but will eventually turn into something that's unhelpful and that will block us in some ways in our lives. The third and final layer is actually the soul truth. And this is what we mean when we say aligning with our truth with a capital T, or aligning with what's real and what's authentic within ourselves. And that soul truth is what is the actual real you. It is what your soul wants to express in this lifetime. Choosing that truth, though, is often what also disrupts our life because aligning with that truth isn't an easy choice. It's not a convenient choice. And it's often a choice that will go against our ego truth and our conditioned truth, meaning it will go against everything that society has taught us. It will go against everything that our parents have taught us. It will go against everything that our ego is telling us, the storylines our ego is telling us that are keeping us safe in this moment. So aligning with our soul truth is extremely courageous work that truly is an initiation into higher consciousness. It's not convenient, it's not comfortable, it's not easy. That said, if you are courageous and ditch the conditioned truth and ditch the ego truth and see it for what it is just a helpful way of building personality, but not the end all be all truth with a capital T. Yes, I'm ready to step into my true, my real, my authentic being, my soul truth. Then how do we access that truth? Let's talk about how we not access it first. You cannot access truth if you are constantly distracting yourself, constantly over analyzing your experience, or trying to control the outcome. So in other words, if you're coming at this from an egoic perspective, you're probably not going to get very far. If you are bypassing your experiences or you're not fully ready to sit with what is and see it transform, you're probably not going to get very far. Truth emerges when we sit with our experience, when we sit in beingness. We just are in the now, right now, with everything that is. The key concept here is non-manipulation of your inner world. Of course, being courageous to sit with your inner world and to not distract or bypass by going into the outside world, which is why the COVID pandemic was such a powerful catalyst for awakening, because we were all sort of forced to go into our inner world and sit with ourselves. We couldn't really bypass because we couldn't be social. The non-manipulation of your inner world is a key here if you are ready to discover your soul truth. And it also means that you're ready to sit with your discomfort, that you're ready with letting your emotions move through your body and through your being without fixing them, and witnessing instead of reacting. So instead of trying to fix and react and say, oh, now I feel this, now I'm going to meditate on it, or I'm going to do an affirmation or whatever else, without trying to manipulate the experience, sitting with what is in the now is how we uncover our authentic, true, real soul truth. It's how we discover what our ego truth is. And it's also how we discover what was domesticated and layered on us by our parents, our caretakers, our family. By sitting in silence and non manipulating it and being in the now here with everything that is how we can uncover the layers of the onion and get to the core of things. Most people don't actually know what they feel or want because they're not ever sitting with themselves long enough to find out. Alignment really begins the moment that we stop trying to control our experience and we start sit with our experience for long enough and listening to it. Alignment happens when an internal congruence is happening within these three areas of our being. The three areas are our mind-heart connection, our gut or our solar plexus, and our behavior. The mind-heart connection is what I know and feel is true. This is the first layer. This is when we sit in quietude, when we sit in stillness long enough to uncover what our ego truth or our domestication, our domesticated truth might tell us, and really discover, oh, none of that is actually my truth. None of that is actually my real me. None of that is actually authentic to me. Oh, this is what my soul is saying. This is what I really want. This is what I know and feel is true. That's when we have the first area of our being online. It's the mind-heart connection. I know it and I feel it, and I am acting from that alignment. Once that is established, we can actually move into the gut, into the solar plexus. Our solar plexus is the area of our beingness that is the seat of our soul. It's where our soul is integrated with our personality and where it can actually choose and then act on what we know and feel is true in the world. So we know and we feel what is true for us, and then we align it with our solar plexus, our gut, and this is where we choose that that's actually what we want to act on. And once those two are in alignment, then we can craft our behavior around it. That's when it becomes actionable, when it becomes behavior, when it becomes habit, when it becomes our reality. This is how we show up in the world. I know and feel what's true. I choose and I act on it. And then I act and I create as a result of my behavior. And that is what internal congruence is, or what true alignment is. Misalignment is a fragmentation. It's when we know and we feel that something is right for us, but we choose not to act on it because for some reason it makes us feel unsafe. For some reason we believe we don't deserve it. For some reason we don't want to change. Alignment is when all of these areas in our being, in our life, are actually aligned and in coherence with one another, and we decide this is what we want to do. So when our thoughts, our truth, and our actions don't match, we also feel tension, anxiety, or even illness. This is when we know that we're fragmented, when we're misaligned, when we're coming from a fear-based choice versus a love-based choice of aligning. And again, love-based choices aren't easy. Alignment, let's talk about what alignment is not so we can really fully understand what it is. What alignment is not. Alignment is not always feeling good. It's also not avoiding discomfort or bypassing hard truths. True alignment can often feel uncomfortable, disruptive, and confronting. Alignment will always challenge our comfort, but it will never betray our truth. Just because you have the occasional fight in your relationship or your partner has an uncomfortable truth that you do not feel is valid for yourself, does not mean you're out of alignment with that person. It does not mean that you're misaligned with that person. As long as you still feel excitement, joy, passion, deep soul love and truth that this is your person, then you're very much in alignment with that person. Signs of misalignment are saying yes when you mean no. It's staying in draining or very toxic dynamics. It's also misalignment when you're performing instead of being. So when you're controlling, you're thinking, oh, this is how it has to be, instead of just being and witnessing the experience, forcing outcomes, as well as feeling chronic tension or confusion within the situation. Those are all signs that you might be misaligned with your creation or what's happening in your life. Let's talk about signs of alignment. You're aligned with what you're trying to create when there's inner calm, even if there's uncertainty. When you're feeling deeply peaceful and an inner calm or clarity around something, even though it's uncertain, typically that means you're in alignment. Out of that inner calm and clarity will often come a grounded decision making. I know this is right for me. I just know this is where I have to go, despite everybody else saying everything else. I know this is for me. I need to do this. And it's also less chasing and more being. So being in the now, a beingness, a non-manipulative way of interacting with that situation, as well as a sense of this is just right, even if it's hard. Let me give you a very personal example here. For the longest time, I've struggled with this idea that I need a traditional job, that I need to be employed, that I need to get my regular paycheck, that I need to climb the career ladder in a corporate environment. And for the longest time, it drained me. I felt fatigued. It didn't feel right. I was burned out. There were all the signs of me being misaligned with that job. I still pushed myself through it because my societal conditioning told me, you need a corporate job to feel successful. And my ego story was like, well, how am I going to make money? I need a steady paycheck. How is this going to happen? My soul truth was, I want to step into being an entrepreneur and building all these businesses that I have creative ideas for. I want to step into being the consciousness teacher and the holistic consultant and coach that I am now. That was my soul truth. But all the other truths, the conditioning and all of that was telling me I couldn't do it. I better not do it. And when I finally stepped into my soul truth, it wasn't easy. But that didn't mean that it's misaligned. It's not easy to be an entrepreneur. It's not always easy to work for yourself, to not know where your next paycheck is coming from, to not have any colleagues. None of that is always easy, but it is worth the struggle. It is worth the alignment of my truth. I'm an entrepreneur and I need to do this work. I cannot be working in corporate America or wherever else. Being an entrepreneur makes me feel inner calm. I'm very clear about it. It's a grounded decision to do this. And being in it, there's less chasing and more allowing, as it just feels right. This is what I need to do. And I don't care if other people think that I should be working in corporate, because I've been through that. I've dissolved my ego stories. So that's just an example for you to see how I've kind of navigated my alignment around my job and career. Lastly, alignment requires action. Alignment isn't just awareness. I can be aware that I want to be an entrepreneur and be my own boss, but just that awareness is not going to get me anywhere. I need to make the decision. I need to set boundaries with myself and with other people around domestic conditioning storylines, as well as my ego safety storylines. And then I need to be ready to step into that change. I need to be ready to say, okay, so now I'm going to create my LLC. So it's decisions, boundaries, and change that need to be embraced once we're ready to really step into action with our alignment. We're ready to act on being aligned. Otherwise, if we don't do that and we just have this, oh, I know what's right for me, I know I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm still going to stay in, the corporate job, and I'm going to talk all about when I'm going to be an entrepreneur, all these wonderful things will happen. Then it very quickly becomes spiritual bypassing. You don't become aligned by knowing your truth. You become aligned by living it. You know it, and then you embody it and you live it. The body is your alignment compass. The body speaks before the mind admits it. We might know our truth, and we might turn a blind eye to it because it's just uncomfortable and scary to live that truth. But our body will show us when things are misaligned and we're fragmented in our decision making. Misalignment in the body can show up as tension, as fatigue, as anxiety, or chronic symptoms. When I was in my corporate job, I was constantly burned out. I was constantly fatigued. There was constant tension in my body. And there were all kinds of other chronic symptoms going on. I'm currently working around another very personal decision and aligning in that area of my life. And two things were speaking to me in my body. Number one, I've been having horrible knee pain, which is kind of unheard of. I'm almost 39 years old at this point. I shouldn't be having the knee pain that I have, as well as thyroid issues. The knees or anything happening with the legs is usually you're not aligned, you're not stepping forward in your path in the way that you're meant to walk it. You feel stuck in some area of your life. So the knee joint is what's moving our leg in order to walk forward. And the thyroid is all about not speaking our truth or expressing our voice. And I wasn't doing both in that area of my life. My blind eye that I was turning to that area of my life has really opened up. I took off the pink glasses and realized, oh my, I really need to do something about this area of my life. And in that moment that I made the decision to do something about it and spoke my truth and aligned with it in my actions, my body instantly responded and my symptoms began to shift. The moment we make aligned decisions, heart, mind, gut, and then behavior, our bodies start shifting and saying, okay, so you finally understood. You finally heard me. The body will always tell us when something is out of alignment. It speaks a language most people have never been taught to understand. I invite you to feel into your body and see where your body is speaking with you about your own fragmentation or misalignment in your life. Now, alignment feels hard. It's such a courageous thing to do. It really is. I just want to point that out. This is true higher consciousness initiation in action right here. And initiation, the hero's journey, or any kind of shamanic initiations, they are not easy. They're a struggle. They're connected to fear and uncertainty. And yet, even though we feel the fear and the uncertainty in it, we still decide to step forward and do it. It feels so uncomfortable because it often requires letting go of certain people in our lives that were really significant to us for a longer time. Understanding that perhaps we had our time with them and perhaps it's not time to continue traveling on with these people. Letting go of people we loved previously is hard. It's also releasing identities that made us feel safe, identities that served us at one point or another. That is not easy either. And it's all about disappointing others. Let's say I have to come to the conclusion that a certain relationship isn't serving me anymore or it's not fulfilling me anymore, then that means I'm going to have to disappoint someone that once was very dear to me or still might be very dear to me, and I might still love that person, but it's just not aligned anymore. Love often isn't the main reason why people split or decide to walk away from a relationship. And then stepping into the unknown, that is not something that feels comfortable. We all shy away from change naturally, and changing and then stepping into something that's unknown is also not an easy thing. And that is why alignment feels so hard. Again, this is an initiation into higher consciousness at its finest. And now you also understand why it's happening for so many people at this time. We truly are shifting from a three-dimensional way of being, from a fear-based choice making, to a five-dimensional way of being, a love-based choice making. Just because we're making the choice of love and we choose our true selves doesn't make it easy. This is why alignment is key number 2, because empowerment opens the door and alignment asks you, are you going to walk through that door? Most people don't struggle with knowing their truth. A lot of us actually know what is right and true for us. Most of us struggle with having the courage to living that truth. When we align with our soul truth, our authentic self, things may fall away. Life reorganizes itself and clarity increases. But it can feel like loss before it feels expansive. Alignment will often dismantle our life before it rebuilds it. This is a really important concept to know if you decide to step into alignment. Just because it feels like everything's falling apart in this moment doesn't mean that something beautiful isn't going to rebuild it based on this new blueprint that you've laid for yourself. When you think about what's aligned or not aligned in your life, think about an area of your life and then ask, does this feel true for me? Am I forcing this? What am I avoiding here? And then pay attention to what your body is also telling you in that moment when you ask those questions. Does your body feel expansive, or does it feel like contraction? Does your nervous system feel calm, or does it feel tense and activated? All of those things are data and information about whether or not you are in your truth or not, whether or not you are aligned or not. In closing this transmission, alignment is not something we achieve once and then we're done. It's something that we choose moment by moment. Every time we choose truth over comfort, we move out of the 3D, fear-based survival choices and into the embodied 5D, heaven on earth, choosing love on a daily basis living. This is why this is internal work. This is why the paradigm shift is internal and not external. This is why you need to do your work if you want to change something in the world. Like Michael Jackson said, I'm starting with the man or the woman in the mirror. And that is how we're going to change the world out there if you want to live in a more peaceful and loving world. So this is the end of this video. Subscribe to my channel if you feel these enhance your life and you can learn something. And if this video spoke to something in you, you might not be the only one who needs to hear it. Sharing these helps these conversations to reach the people who are ready for them. Lastly, comment. I want to hear from you. Where in your life are you out of alignment? And if you're really honest, what do you already know needs to change? If you're comfortable, please comment below. I will certainly read all of these comments. And I'm hoping we can create community, loving and non-judgmentally. With that said, as always, let love be your guide, and I will see you next time.